What's going on, guys? It's Simo, and welcome to episode 4 of our trek throughout the history of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Banlist. If you missed any of the previous episodes, I'll have the links down in the description, maybe pinned in a comment so you guys can quickly get caught up. We're going to be covering the rest of the effect monsters and actually going through the fusions and the synchro monsters as well. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff to cover, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Samsara Lotus is a dark level 1 plant effect monster with 0 attack and defense. It reads, during your end phase, if you control no spell or trap card, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in face-up attack position. This card's controller takes 1000 damage during each of their standby phases. Similarly to Phoenician Cluster Amaryllis in the previous episode, Samsara Lotus is used in tandem with Topologic Bomber Dragon to perform yet another FTK. This FTK, however, was a bit more complicated. In combination with Trickstar Black Cat Bat, which inflicts 200 damage to the opponent each time a monster it points to is destroyed, co-linked with Nightmare Cerberus, which makes both monsters immune to Topologic Bomber Dragon's destruction effect. Since Samsara Lotus doesn't have a once per turn clause, Lotus would revive itself, triggering the Topologic Bomber Dragon, immediately destroying itself, and then dealing 200 damage to the opponent, while the Nightmare Cerberus and Black Cat Bat stay on the field. And since it's still the end phase, you can trigger the Lotus again, then perform this loop as many times as possible until your opponent's life points hit 0. You know, this just demonstrates the length that players will go to figure out unique ways to be able to FTK their opponent so that way they don't have to play Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. Spiral Masterplan is a dark level 7 spellcaster effect monster with 1200 attack and 2800 defense. Its effect reads, once per turn, you can add 1 Spiral Mission card from your deck to your hand. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Spiral Resort and 1 Spiral Monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Masterplan, and you can only use this effect of Spiral Masterplan once per turn. Spiral Masterplan is just brimming with free advantage. Not only does it search the powerful Spiral Field spell and any other Spiral monster when sent to the graveyard, its first effect is only a soft once per turn, meaning if you can revive the Masterplan, you can use her search ability once more. This is complemented by the fact that Masterplan can search Spiral Mission Rescue, which is a non-once per turn monster reborn for the Spiral archetype, assuming you can find a way to get it into the graveyard, which turns Masterplan into a reusable source of summoning material. The recently released Magician Souls can send Masterplan directly from the deck to the graveyard, enabling easy access to start abusing Masterplan's effects. Historically, Spiral has been one of the strongest and most feared decks when at full power, but with its recent resurgence in early 2020, thanks in part to Magician Souls, it finally forced Konami's hand a little bit to ban Masterplan and do something about it. Substitoed is a water level 1 aqua effect monster with 100 attack and 2000 defense. You can tribute 1 monster to special summon 1 frog monster from your deck except Frog the Jam. Frog monsters except Frog the Jam cannot be destroyed by battle. For anyone wondering about the Frog the Jam part of this text, it's basically a translation error from the OCG. The correct name of this card, I believe, is Slime Toad, and so that's not a frog monster, so technically Substitoed can't summon it. For anyone who remembers Mind Master in the previous episode, you can already see where this is going. Substitoed arguably enables one of Yu-Gi-Oh's most consistent FTKs ever, the Frog FTK. By having Substitoed and any other monster on your field, you could use Substitoed's effect to tribute and summon frog monsters over and over and over again until the graveyard was filled with at least 18 other frog monsters. One of the frogs you would summon throughout this loop is Swap Frog, which on summon would allow you to dump a level 2 or lower aqua monster from your deck to the graveyard, which in this case would be Ronin Toadin, since Substitoed isn't a natural tutor for the card. Then after the graveyard is loaded with frogs, you can activate Mass Driver to tribute off both the Substitoed and the final monster summon with the effect to deal 800 damage to the opponent, 400 per monster. Then using Rodent Toadin's effect, you would banish a frog monster from the graveyard to special summon the Rodent Toadin, tribute it to the Mass Driver to deal 400 damage to your opponent, then repeat the process until the opponent's life points hit 0. Fun and interactive! And speaking of fun and interactive, the Tyrant Neptune is a water level 10 reptile effect monster with 0 attack and defense. It cannot be special summoned. You can tribute summon this card by tributing 1 monster. This card gains the total original attack and defense of the monster or monsters tributed for its tribute summon. When this card is tribute summoned, target 1 effect monster in the graveyard that was tributed for this tribute summon. This card's name becomes that target's name, and this card gains the target's effects. Another potential FTK enabler, the Tyrant Neptune was used in tandem with Lyrilusk Independent Nightingale, which could easily be summoned off of a card like Instant Fusion. The Tyrant Neptune would then copy the effects of the Nightingale, giving it a grand total of 6,000 attack, plus it was also unaffected by all other card effects. Since the Tyrant Neptune is level 10, it could use the effect of Nightingale that it copied to burn the opponent for 5,000 damage, resulting in in an automatic win if it survived for a single turn. While that specifically isn't an FTK, there were other ways incorporating other burn monsters to be able to close the gap for the remaining 3,000 life points. What makes the Tyrant Neptune unique is that unlike most monsters with copy effects, Neptune's copy effect is permanent, making it very difficult to deal with since there's only a small window for interaction. The Tyrant Neptune was also searchable with King of the Feralimbs, and Instant Fusion was searchable via the Predaplant engine, so the combo was rather easy to assemble. Again, this just goes back to my hatred of cards that say unaffected by other card effects. That line of text should just not exist in the game. Victory Dragon is a dark level 8 dragon effect monster with 2400 attack and 3000 defense. This card cannot be special summoned, and to tribute summon this card, you must tribute 3 dragon type monsters. If this card attacks your opponent directly and reduces their life points to 0, you win the match. Since dragon type monsters are one of the most supported archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's not difficult to get 3 dragons onto the field in order to summon this card. Imagine if Dragon Link or Dragon Rulers were allowed to incorporate this. Also keep in mind that a game is not the same as a match. A match, for anyone who doesn't play competitively, consists out of a best 2 out of 3 games, so one hit from Victory Dragon would automatically decide a winner. However, what's interesting about Victory Dragon is that it's not as powerful as you might think. In the TCG, players are able to concede a game at any point, so if a player saw Victory Dragon hit the field, the opponent could just concede before Victory Dragon can even resolve its own win condition. In the OCG, however, the rules for conceding are a bit different, and since this card is just a rulings nightmare and encourages a bunch of unsportsmanlike behavior and a bunch of headaches for everyone, the card has been a permanent fixture of the ban list for several years. Most prize cards actually have the exact same win condition as Victory Dragon, except they may just require different types of monsters, such as warriors or spellcasters, for example. And these cards also say that they cannot be used in a duel at the bottom of the text, making Victory Dragon the only card that's actually playable with this sort of effect. You know, aside from the fact that it's banned. Oh boy, Yada Garasu is a win level 2 Fiend Spirit effect monster with 200 attack and 100 defense. This card cannot be special summoned and returns to the owner's hand during the end phase of a turn it is normal summoned or flipped face up. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, they skip their next draw phase. Yada Garasu is one of the very first cards to be banned in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game and has been banned ever since. Denying the opponent a draw phase with an infinitely resummonable monster should have immediately set off some red flags in the R&D department. If the game ever reaches a point where your opponent can't stop a direct attack from Yada, it's most likely all downhill from there, as Yada makes it nearly impossible for the opponent to recover. Yada Garasu is responsible for the dreaded Yada Lock, a combo that in combination with the pre-errata Chaos Emperor Dragon would be almost unbeatable. With a Sangan or Witch of the Black Forest already on the field, you could banish a light and a dark monster from your graveyard to summon Chaos Emperor Dragon, nuke the board in both players' hands with the effect, then trigger the effect of the Witch or Sangan to search Yada Garasu. Since your opponent has no cards in hand, you can normal summon Yada, attack directly, your opponent can't draw a card, and you've basically locked up the game from that point regardless of what your opponent's life points are sitting at. I remember facing down the Yada Lock at one of the very first tournaments I attended as an 11-year-old, and needless to say, it was one of the most incredibly frustrating things to play against, and to be honest, it's a surprise that I'm still playing this game today. But that wraps it up for every effect monster that is currently sitting on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list. Man, this took us, what, like 3.5 episodes just to get this far? That's insane, but we still have plenty of more broken cards to discuss as we enter the fusion monsters. Elder Entity Norden is a water level 4 fairy fusion effect monster with 2000 attack and 2200 defense. When this card is special summoned, you can target a level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated, also banish it when this card leaves the field. Elder Entity Norden was easily abusable with instant fusion, allowing you to summon him to the field for a mere 1000 life points. At the bare minimum, Norden enabled some incredibly easy rank 4 Xyz plays due to his resurrection effect, but without a once per turn clause, Norden can be used multiple times in a turn with cards such as Refusion, which, yes, did actually see competitive play and actually helped enable some of the more degenerate OTK and FTK aspects of the card. Aside from Norden's overall power and splashability, Norden also enabled ridiculous draw loops with the Zodiac monsters, Lunalight Black Sheep, Fusion Substitute, and Daigusto Emerald, allowing players to start the game with with almost twice as many cards as their opponent if gone unanswered. What's crazy to me about Norden is that for how powerful of a card this is, this was a promo in the Mega Tins. A promo. I mean, we've had our fair share of Mega Tin promos, but Norden, this just takes it way over the top. And I gotta say, I really like when Konami takes these kinds of cards and makes them promos so that it keeps the price point of the card relatively affordable, so a lot of players actually have access to it. While the Mega Tins now are hit or miss in terms of how good the promos are, I really wish that Konami would do this more often. Supreme King Dragon's Starving Venom is a dark level 8 Dragon Fusion effect monster with 2800 attack and 2000 defense. Must be either fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing the above cards you control, in which case you do not use polymerization. Once per turn, you can target one other monster on the field or in the graveyard until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. Also, for the rest of this turn, if your monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. You would have thought that after the Tyrant Neptune, Konami would have wanted to ban Lyrilusc Independent Nightingale from being abused by other cards, but here we go again. Starving Venom is easily summonable in the Pendulum Magician deck since most of the Pendulum Magicians are dark. Starving Venom can copy the effect of an engraved Lyrilusc Independent Nightingale, which until the end phase makes it gain 4000 attack for a total of 6800, become unaffected by any other card effects, and enables it to inflict 4000 damage to your opponent once per turn. This guarantees an FTK if you can summon 2 copies of Starving Venom, since this card does not have a hard once per turn clause, resulting in exactly 8000 damage. Independent Nightingale is summoned off of Instant Fusion, which is actually searched as part of the combo thanks to Supreme King Gate Zero's Pendulum effect, making the Pendulum Magician FTK highly consistent and ultimately resulting in Starving Venom's ban. Gee, I can't wait to see what card Konami develops next that can copy the effects of other monsters so we can have this happen a third time and ultimately have Independent Nightingale get that card banned as well. Thunder Dragon Colossus is a dark level 8 Thunder Fusion effect monster with 2600 attack and 2400 defense. It must either be fusion summoned or special summoned during the turn a Thunder monster's effect was activated in the hand by tributing one Thunder effect non-fusion monster, in which case you do not use polymerization. Cards cannot be added from the main deck to your opponent's hand except by drawing them. If this card will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish one Thunder monster from your graveyard instead. Back in the day, it wasn't unrealistic to see a Thunder Dragon player end on a board of 2, possibly even 3 copies of Colossus during their opening play, make it incredibly difficult for the opponent to play the game. Non-pure Thunder Dragon decks would also splash small Thunder Dragon engines just so their deck could end on at least a single Colossus, in addition to the rest of their board loaded with potential negations. Denying the opponent the ability to search is already powerful enough, but pair that with the fact that Colossus also has built-in protection, and with how easy it is to summon multiple copies, Colossus became very oppressive very quickly. Colossus is actually limited to 1 over in the OCG at the time of recording this video, and a lot of players advocate that Colossus could come off the ban list because it would help boost Thunder Dragon a little bit, diversify the metagame a little bit more, and while that may be true, I don't really think that's a valid argument because this card is so oppressive in that it denies your opponent from being able to do one of the core things that makes Yu-Gi-Oh! The game that it is, which is searching as much as you can, so I'm not particularly inclined to have this card come off the ban list. A walking mistake that has built-in protection is probably not good for the game, but I'm really curious to hear what you guys think down in the comments. And just like that, we're all done with the fusion monsters, so we're gonna wrap up this video with the synchro monsters as well, so that way in the next episode, we can cover all of the Xyz monsters. Ancient Fairy Dragon is a light level 7 dragon synchro effect monster with 2100 attack and 3000 defense. Once per turn, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. Once per turn, you can destroy as many field spells on the field as possible, and if you do, gain 1000 life points, then you can add 1 field spell from your deck to your hand. Ancient Fairy Dragon was easily summonable via Destrudo the Lost Dragon's Frisian, allowing field spell reliant decks to cycle through field spells that don't have a hard once per turn clause such as Spiral Resort. Ancient Fairy Dragon also only has a soft once per turn clause, meaning if you could resurrect the same copy or summon a new copy, you could use the effect again to generate yourself even more advantage. Complement that with the free special summon ability, and it didn't matter if you were forced to skip your battle phase if you were comboing off on your very first turn. Ancient Fairy Dragon Dragon enabled combo decks to propel themselves even further into their combos, making it much more difficult for the opponent to break your board. With Ancient Fairy Dragon legal, Golden Castle of Stromberg is actually a 1-card FTK, which, to be fair, is in combination with about 4 other banned cards, but the versatility of Ancient Fairy Dragon has just become a little bit too strong by modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards, which is ultimately why the card has now been banned. Denglong, first of the Yang Zing, is a light level 5 Worm Synchro Tuner effect monster with 0 attack and 2800 defense. If this card is special summoned, you can add 1 Yang Zing card from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, you can send 1 Worm type monster from your deck to the graveyard. This card's level becomes the sent monster's level. If this face-up card leaves the field, you can special summon 1 Yang Zing monster from your deck. You can only special summon Denglong, first of the Yang Zings, once per turn. You know this card is bad when you can only special summon it once per turn and it's still banned. While Denglong is a Yang Zing card, that aspect is really an afterthought, as True King Dinosaur was actually the deck that ended up abusing Denglong in far worse ways. Soul Eating Overraptor, for instance, is a 1-card Denglong and alone represented 2 negations from 9 pillars of the Yang Zing, which was searched off of Denglong, as well as Herald of the Arclight, which could be made during the opponent's turn with Chi-Wen that was dumped off of the Denglong's effect. Furthermore, True King Lithosejim the Disaster was able to revive Denglong, triggering its effect once more, allowing a constant presence that was difficult for the opponent to deal with. Denglong's level modulation also allowed True King Dinosaurs to facilitate True King of all calamities rather easily, and Denglong was banned as a result. I feel as though part of the reason why Denglong is banned is because its summoning condition is generic, only needing a tuner and a non-tuner, and that's the case for actually almost every single synchro monster that's on the ban list. If Denglong, for instance, specifically required a worm monster somewhere in the equation, or maybe all worm monsters to make, then the card would probably not be nearly as oppressive as it is now, and some players argue that it was unfairly hit due to its performance at the World Championship, but players are still hesitant to say the card should be legal again, just in case someone finds a new way to abuse it. Ib, the World Chalice Justiciar, is a water level 5 spellcaster synchro tuner effect monster with 1800 attack and 2100 defense. For this card synchro summon, you can treat 1 World Chalice normal monster you control as a tuner. You can only use each of the following effects of Ib, the World Chalice Justiciar, once per turn. If this card is synchro summoned, you can add 1 World Legacy card from your deck to your hand. If this synchro summon card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 World Chalice monster from your deck or graveyard, except Ib, the World Chalice Justiciar. Clearly, Konami didn't learn their lesson from Denglong when it came to generic level 5 synchro monsters that generate free advantage, because Ib was exactly that. If anything, Ib was actually stronger, because on synchro summon, Ib could add either World Legacy Guard Dragon or World Legacy Succession from deck to hand, allowing players to further extend their combos. Then if that weren't enough, when Ib was sent to the graveyard, which is incredibly easy thanks to both Link summoning or even synchro summoning since it's a tuner, Ib would summon a World Chalice monster to the field, resulting in Ib generating even more advantage. Ib just did way too much for a single card, and the fact that Ib specifically synergized with dragon decks on top of it, Ib was destined to meet the ban list eventually. Tempest Magician is a dark level 6 spellcaster synchro effect monster with 2200 attack and 1400 defense. When this card is synchro summoned, place 1 spell counter on it. Once per turn, you can discard any number of cards to place 1 spell counter on a monster you control for each card you discarded. You can remove all spell counters on the field to inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each removed spell counter. It shouldn't really come as a surprise to see another card that you can use to burn your opponent to death on turn 1 if you manage to get 16 spell counters on your field. Tempest Magician FTK has gone through countless iterations, even having 1-card FTKs, but upon the release of the modern Endymion archetype from the Order of the Spellcaster structure deck, amassing at least 16 spell counters became laughably easy. I feel like when these cards were initially designed, Konami didn't exactly have the foresight to see what the game was going to evolve into by today's standards, so without any once per turn clauses or any sort of limiting factor to stop these cards from being abused, it's actually kind of funny to see what these cards have become. The OCG's even gone to the extreme by banning cards such as Amazon Archer, Cannon Soldier, Toon Cannon Soldier, and Cannon Soldier MK2 for the exact same reason, and honestly, I feel like we should also follow suit here in the TCG and probably even do a broader sweep while we're at it to deter players from going down these FTK avenues, because let's be honest, if there's a way to FTK, people are going to find it, people are going to abuse it, and it's just going to result in more unfun, degenerate gameplay. Wow, we covered a lot in this episode, and we're still not even halfway through the ban list. Stick around for next episode where we're going to cover every single Xyz monster on the ban list, and there's a lot of of them, so you're not going to want to miss out. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what your favorite card was from this episode, and you can also check out the previous episodes by checking out the description or the pinned comments. You'll be able to catch up with what you might have missed and learn some more history. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon for exclusive early one-day access to both the Yu-Gi-Oh Progression series and the history of Yu-Gi-Oh. Thank you all so much again, and we will see you next time.